Yep. G'day, Tim. Thanks very much for having me along today. Yeah, James Merrillees, Managing Director of Gold Mile Resources, gold and base metals explorer focused on the Yilgarn Craton in Western Australia. Yilgarn Craton being a geological province that's extremely well endowed and familiar probably to most of your listeners as being a place that hosts the Gold Mile of Kalgoorlie, large copper, zinc, lithium deposits, and obviously some big nickel discoveries more recently. The focus for Golden Mile today is the UMary project, which we picked up in March of this year, where we've got a 800 square K land holding covering prospective portions of the Nandi igneous complex. And we've recently flown an airborne EM survey, which was hugely successful in identifying a swarm of conductors, more than 48 conductors that we're looking to follow up in the near future. We've also got a large land package in and around the Leonora Gold district, which is a well-known producing and developing area, host to big deposits like Sons of Gwalia, held by St Barbara, as well as the UMary project in between UMary and Leonora there, which I'll go into some more detail on. We're a relatively young company, listed back in 2017, really on the back of the Quicksilver nickel cobalt project you can see down there in the wheat belt of Western Australia. And really it's a legacy project for the company, but we see some opportunity to extract some value there over the coming months. Yeah, thanks, Tim. And on the next slide, you'll see backed with a very serious and experienced board management team. I'm a geologist. Frank and Grant have recently joined the board. Frank is the largest shareholder in the company. You can see relatively tight capital structure with 140 odd million shares on issue and very tightly held with the top 20 shareholders there. Modest market cap and, you know, to forgive the cliche, but leverage to exploration success. And I'll just note on that share graph, the big jump we had back there in April, which was on the back of a single air core hole that we drilled in our Benalla project. And really what that emphasises to me is any exploration success for this company is going to be a huge success for our shareholders. Yeah, thanks, Tim. So the UMary project I touched on in the Nandi igneous complex, large belt of rocks about 4.5–5 hours northeast of Perth, where we've got a significant land holding there, over 800 square kilometres. Only picked it up in March, and since then we've been quite busy. The tenements are granted. We've flown a large airborne electromagnetic survey targeting VMS deposits. So these are a style of deposit, very rich in copper and zinc, and often precious metals, gold and silver. And the prime example of this in the Yilgarn is Golden Grove, about 120 odd kilometres west of us, which has been producing since 1980, held by a private equity company that's recently listed that asset called 29 Metals. So the first step in the exploration process there was the airborne survey that we flew. So next slide, you'll see a picture of an image generated from that survey. And a few things to note here, other than the large swarm of conductors we've got over the Nandi prospect, but the large pink areas there reflect conductive cover. So EM is a technique we use to target copper-rich and zinc-rich metals in the basement rock that are conductive and shine up as red on those maps. But large areas of salt are very conductive as well, and you can see that there's some large salt incursions there. But what I want to point out here is in the northeast of the survey, where there's a bit of a clearer area, the system we used is the latest iteration of EM called Excite, and you're able to turn down the frequency to see through that conductive overburden, and really the first time that system's been used, and highlighted that redhead anomaly up in the northeast. So it's quite an exciting advance for us. And then focusing in on the Nandi area on the next slide, where there's been a number of, well, probably 40 or 50 years of exploration through there for VMS style deposits. And where I think the opportunity lies for us, and what I'm really excited about, is this latest iteration of EM. So the latest technology that we've applied here can see through that overburden much more effectively than systems that earlier explorers had. But the other thing that to note here is the historic work has come up with a number of very potentially economic intersections, 6 metres at over 1% copper in one hole there. And what I note there is that this smoke and this widespread copper and zinc mineralisation identified by previous explorers is away from or not testing the conductors that we've identified with this latest survey. So that's a really exciting development. And you can see, targets like Kai in the north, the TBW in the south, are away from that central cluster and represent standalone targets that we're excited to get out and test in the coming weeks and months. So the next program here is we've got a ground EM crew slated to come out there in early next month to go and run wires over these conductors, and that'll refine and better define targets that we can model for drill testing. And we've got line of sight on an RC rig, the proverbial hen's teeth in the current booming market, but through our good networks, an RC rig to come and drill some deep holes into those conductors. And I expect that to get underway in early October. So moving on from Urambi up another 100 kilometres to the northeast of there's our UMary project. And it's one that's really sat in the background in the portfolio over the last few years and really coming to the fore with a increased focus on exploration in this belt with companies such as Rox, Empire and Venus having quite a bit of success up there. We've always known we've had extensive surface gold and some base metals anomalism. The prospector that vended the project into the company is still out there prospecting and continues to identify some really interesting surface patches of alluvial and some basement gold at places like Elephant's Reef, Pirates Patch, and just last week he sent me a bag of gold-rich quartz nuggets that he'd identified at a prospect called Gift Horse. You can see there has been a number of drilling programs through here, but it's all shallow RAB, so that's the style of drilling, really looking to get small, basement samples for gold testing in this case. But all those holes average 20 metres, so barely scratching the surface. And some of them have ended in mineralisation. You can see some of those holes there. I mean, they're drilled in 1993 and 1994, so significant time ago, that were never followed up. So they're immediate walk-up targets for us. Recent soil sampling by the companies also identified this Fitzbore project and prospect, and you can see that's well over a couple of kilometres long. Nickel in soils, very wide-spaced sampling with a bit of copper there, and that's important for us to note that nickel on its own, but associated with copper is an important indicator of potential for mineralisation. So we'll look forward to getting out there and air core drilling targets out through UMary. So on the Leonora Gold project, on the next slide, we'll skip over the more detail there on UMary, but I can talk about that a bit later. But at Leonora Gold, we have 3 projects there. The Monarch project, where there's a high-grade wildcat prospect we tested a couple of years ago. Benalla, where we had the success I alluded to earlier, with some really nice intersections, 4 metres at 3 grams gold. That's a stunning intercept in an air core hole. Deeper RC drilling around that has left us with a structural story that was more complicated than we first thought, and we're doing quite a bit of work to try and unravel that. And I see some soil sampling to test this new structural trend that we've identified there over the coming months. As well as this Ironstone Well project, 7 kilometres outside Leonora, that's really seen little work. We did some expenditure-related air core drilling early in the year, some sniffs there, but fair to say with the focus currently on Urambi and then UMary, the current work program at Leonora is going to be more around surface sampling and targeting. So moving on from Leonora Gold, I mentioned the legacy project at Quicksilver. Now, this is a project we've spent $2.5 million before my time. It's a nickel laterite project, and before your viewers start yawning or getting concerned, we recognise a 26 million tonne, 0.64% nickel resource is there's plenty of these stranded resources around the goldfields. A couple of things are different and really earmark Quicksilver as something worth further work. The first one's obvious from those maps is location relative to infrastructure, which is a key part of larger nickel laterite projects, with not only Fremantle, Bunbury, Albany and Esperance close by, 5 kilometres from a railhead, relatively easy access, but also the Ravensthorpe nickel operation owned by First Quantum just down the road, which if we could prove up some better grade material, has potential for feed there. And what a metallurgist contact of mine noted, and in fact came through unsolicited to me, was that very little, in fact no work had been done on very simple beneficiation of our Quicksilver ore, and he saw potential for that in the limited test work we've done to date. So we're currently engaged with Wood Mining and Metals, who are well known in terms of processing nickel laterite ores, in reviewing that earlier test work we've done. And we've currently got a scope out with some labs to test some of the material that we've still got left from that project. So really low cost, but potentially a high value add study that we're undergoing at the moment. So really in summary, on the next slide, Gold Mile, junior gold and base metals explorer, technically driven, a great swathe of portfolio projects in the Yilgarn of Western Australia, focused on the Urambi base metals opportunity, where we've got a swarm of conductors, outstanding targets being proved up for drill ready in the coming months. And we look forward to putting out results of those as they come available. UMary coming up through the pipeline with some air core and further surface sampling to come up. A large package in the Leonora district where we're targeting and surface sampling and further groundwork are planned, and then extracting value from legacy projects, and specifically the Quicksilver nickel cobalt project, and we've got the board and management team to drive that over the coming months. So thanks very much, Tim, and welcome any questions from your viewers.
Yeah, thanks, James. Quite a few questions. You're a small company. You're in lots of projects, lots of opportunities out there. How do you compete for resources like with what was it, RC drill rigs and things like that? Yeah,
look, without blowing wind up my own skirt too much, I've been around a little while, and we've done a lot of drilling. I mean, since I joined the company in November, we've done 3 drilling campaigns with RC and Aircore, and people like to work with us, I think, is probably the first part of it. And we're organised. We don't leave stuff guys around. We pay well. We pay on time. And just through 25 plus years in the industry, we've built up a good network of guys that we like to work with and that like to work with us. And we often, admittedly, just take rigs as they pass by the front door. But we're certainly, I think, well connected to take advantage of that.
And what does the infrastructure look like around your projects?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Urambi. It's a 4.5-hour, 5-hour drive from Perth. You get a good sausage roll in Payne's Fine and a coffee and some good company, some quirky characters, and then a short drive out to the Nandee homestead property there. And there's a number of dongers and some on-site caravans and a really classic, eccentric pastoralist out there who's been there for many years, seen a number of people come and go, and it's more than welcoming. And a short drive, there's cut lines through there already, relatively straightforward access for exploration and particularly for drill rigs. And I think I mentioned Quicksilver. Well, that's in the wheat belt of WA, so access couldn't be easier.
And what's your timeline moving forward in regards to these assets, drilling deeper, and what's funding look like moving ahead?
Yeah, well, in terms of timing, we've got a contract signed with a ground EM crew, and their best estimate is they'll be on site in the middle of September. We've got line of sight on an RC rig, and we're really trying to juggle that so we have the results from the ground geophysics, but again, looking early October. Yeah, we are funding constrained at the moment. We've got funds to take through that EM survey and no doubt, building the story through that, we'll be looking for funding over the coming months to support a really chunky RC program, and we're looking at sort of 3,000 to 5,000 metres of drilling there at UMary, plus the work that I've got earmarked for UMary. The Quicksilver work's already budgeted and covered in the current funding.